Being a GM of a Major League Baseball team is no easy endeavor. They have to make moves based on their intuitions and all the information they have in front of them. Essentially, every GM will eventually do something, whether that is an action or an inaction, that haunts them. This was the case of Farhan Zaidi when he was with the Dodgers, unwittingly giving up Yordan Alvarez for a pitcher who hasn't graced the field in years. And this is that story. Let's start with some background. As a teenager, he played in the Cuban National Series and landed on scouts' radars. Charlie Gonzalez, an Astros scout, liked what he saw from Alvarez while playing in Florida, where international prospects are invited to play, and he pushed for the Astros to sign Alvarez. They spoke, and Alvarez even expressed his willingness to sign with them. It would have been a done deal. The issue was, the Astros had already incurred penalties for spending far beyond their bonus pool money from spending $12 million on international amateur signings, including a 5-year, $47.5 million deal for a different Cuban infielder, Yuli Gurriel. They weren't going to eat the penalty money, and the Dodgers were able to bid and sign Yordan for $2 million. Let's throw it back to July 31st, 2016. The Dodgers are 59-46 approaching the trade deadline, just 2 games back from the San Francisco Giants, in the thick of the division race. They have the roster of what it takes to win a championship, essentially as they do every year. The Astros not too far back in their division either, 6 games behind the Rangers. We're looking to make some moves as well. There's plenty of time to play catch up for a playoff run. For the Dodgers, it's time to add and bolster the pitching staff, and GMs are in a scramble to see what deals they can make. Jeff Luhnow, GM for the Astros at the time, is getting a ton of calls about reliever Josh Fields from plenty of teams, a mid-level, innings-eating type of reliever with them in prior years. Luhnow gives Farhan a call. What about Alvarez, the Cuban, as Jeff recalled a prospect that intrigued his scout Gonzalez earlier in the year? No, we wouldn't trade Alvarez. What the two parties failed to specify is which Alvarez they were referring to. Luhnow was talking about Yordan Alvarez, while Farhan thought he was talking about Yadier Alvarez. Who is Yadier Alvarez, you ask? Yadier Alvarez is also a Cuban player, but a pitcher who the Dodgers signed as an international free agent for $16 million in 2015. They had a sizable investment in him, and they would not be able to give up this prospect willy-nilly. They were less possessive of Yordan Alvarez, who they had invested only 1/8 of the amount they did in Yadier at $2 million. Eventually, the two sides cleared up the miscommunication, and the trade was complete. The two sides thinking nothing of it, the Dodgers flipped a newly signed international prospect for a proven big leaguer. Just your average trade deadline transaction.
Me llaman a mi cuarto y me dicen que había sido cambiado a la organización de Houston. No sabía lo que era un cambio. Y en ese entonces lo que pensé fue, bueno, me están votando. Llamé a todo el mundo, oye, me están votando, y me explicaron lo que era el cambio. Mucha gente no sabe esa parte, siempre me preguntan, oh, ¿jugaste con Los Ángeles? Solamente una vez me puse el traje y no llegué a jugar.
The yearning for Cuban stars grew irrational in the wake of the arrival of stars Aroldis Chapman, Yoenis Cespedes, Jose Abreu, and Yasiel Puig in prior years that led to bloated and disastrous contracts for players such as Rusney Castillo, Yasmani Tomas, and not disastrous yet not entirely fruitful signing either of Yohan Moncada, signing at 19 for $31.5 million and then trading for Chris Sale by the Red Sox. Also, the list of flops signed by the Dodgers includes 3 players, Hector Oliveira, Alex Guerrero, and Arizbel Arubarena. And on those 3 prospects combined, they spent $115 million in signing bonuses. But it seemed to GMs, scouts, and owners alike, if one of these players worked out and became a star, or could be used as a key trade piece for a proven player, it could be worth the wear. At first, it seemed like the Dodgers had won the Yordan Alvarez and Josh Fields trade, as Fields pitched impact innings for the Dodgers both for the remaining 2016 year and the entire 2017 regular season as well. Well worth the $2 million in value that was swapped for Yordan Alvarez and the 2.84 ERA with 57 innings pitched, and great numbers across the board with a 1.46 ERA+. But the playoffs of that year and beyond is where the trade value scale starts to tip back towards the Astros. Who was on the mound to blow a game in the 2017 World Series against the Astros? Josh Fields. He was back though in 2018 and was even better than the year prior. In a more limited sample with 41 innings, he only allowed 10 earned runs in that span, good for a 2.2 ERA and a 1.78 ERA+. But he failed to make the team in 2019 and was released. Then signed with the Brewers, was released a month later, signed with the Rangers 10 days after that, and again was released a month and a half later. Not seeing big league innings that year at all, and that's all she wrote. So Josh Fields ended his career in 2019 with a 1.8 WAR, overall decent stats, and was a serviceable reliever with a 3.71 ERA over 6 seasons. Really nothing to scoff at. Even at this point, with Fields no longer in pro ball, the Dodgers had won this trade made a few years prior. But right as his big league career ended, Yordan had made his MLB debut a couple weeks earlier with uncanny timing and had other ideas in mind about who was winning this trade. Yordan burst onto the scene looking cool as a cucumber up at the plate, homering his first game.
Swings at this one, hits it to deep center, going back on it, Broxton, it's got a chance, it's gone! Yordan Alvarez, his first as a major leaguer, puts the Astros up 2-1.
And this would just be a small glimpse into what Yordan accomplished this season, the beginning of an incredible 87-game run. He absolutely cooked out there. The Astros probably realized they should have promoted him to the big leagues earlier. He slashed .313, .412, and .655, good for a 1.067 OPS, good for a 173 OPS plus, and a 177 weighted runs created plus. He clubbed 27 homers and was a part of the World Series run in a lineup as a rookie and winning Rookie of the Year honors in flying colors. It was obvious he was legit and he was here to stay. And wait a minute, if we're looking at WAR to value a player, as many do, it looks like just this one season with his ridiculous offense, Yordan put up a 3.7 WAR this season, while Josh Fields' entire career was worth 1.8. So tip the scales back to the Astros. You can say they won the trade now, but after the 2019 season, this is where the trade starts to become very lopsided. 2020 was a bit of a wash for Yordan. He played 2 games, homering off Mariners' slim, shady-haired Nestor, and underwent knee surgery that kept him out for the abbreviated COVID season. He would be back the next season, where he was right back to his 2019 form again. From here on out, Yordan would never see a season with less than 30 homers or an OPS below 850 even. He was becoming one of the most formidable power hitters in the game. What's most impressive, really, is his playoff prowess, too. In 2021, in the ALCS versus the Red Sox, he was unstoppable with a .522 batting average, a homer, 5 extra base hits, 7 runs scored, and 6 RBIs, a 1.408 OPS in a spot where he had the most pressure, which sent them to the World Series again. And his knack for coming up in big pressure spots shown once again, as he seems to have that non-measurable clutch factor. In 2022, I just remember watching this one versus the Mariners in Game 1, down 2 with runners on first and second. The wild Robbie Ray closer appearance the Mariners tried to pull off. Boone, we should have learned this doesn't work. And being absolutely jaw-dropped as he crushed a no-doubter. Even as a Yankees fan, I was still in awe of how electric that was. And who had essentially the game-winning home run to close out the World Series in 2022? Yep, it was Yordan. He signed a big extension in the midst of that 2022 season. I think the Astros saw more than enough not to let him hit free agency, and this deal can now be seen as an underpay with the power numbers of a player his caliber. He has been an all-star and received MVP votes in the last 3 years, coming in third in that monstrous, again, 1.OPS season as he did in 2019 with 37 home runs. I know it sounds like I'm going crazy about how good he is, but there are not many players that hold a .298 cumulative batting average, .973 OPS, averaging about 33 homers a season, and now has 466 RBIs in a 5-year span. Not really even worth counting the 2-game 2020 season. He has a .944 OPS in the playoffs, in 60 games in his career, 12 home runs, and 41 RBIs. What's impressive too is his splits versus righties and lefties are pretty much even. He mashes both sides. And yes, he's not much of a fielder at all, obviously, but you don't mind having a DH this good clogging up that spot. So this man's just on another level, and there's even more value than what the numbers show with the massive series and homers he's had in the playoffs for Houston. And in all this time, he sits at a 23.7 career WAR. Comparing it again to Josh Fields, 1.8, the trade is and will continue to be massively lopsided since Yordan is only 27, so who knows his trajectory from here if he keeps up this pace. I thought this was an interesting story. I always like to backtrack how successful players got to the point where they are today and these lopsided trades. And honestly, as this continues on, it could be a top 10 worst trade in history perhaps. And these types of trades are going to continue to happen in the future since it's pretty logical at times to trade prospects today for a proven player in the bigs at a time when you're looking to make a deep playoff run. And there's always the risk that this happens. I can't even imagine if he was still on the Dodgers. That would just be silly. All right, so that about wraps this one up. Thanks for watching. I'm going to be working on a pretty fun video after this one, revolving around a baseball video game. Going to see if I can pull it off. Peace.